Mr. Abraham Lincoln.
Charlie Barker. Excellent talk. Our guest speaker today is Mr. Charles Browning.
Around the corner I had a friend. In this great city that has no end. The days go by and the weeks rush on, and before I know it, a year is gone. I never see my old friend's face, for life is a swift and terrible pace. He knows I like him just as well as in the days when I rang his bell, and he rang mine. We were younger then, now we are busy, tired men. Tired with playing a foolish game, tired with trying to make a name. Tomorrow I say I would call on Jim, just to show that I'm thinking of him. But tomorrow comes, and tomorrow goes, and the distance between us grows and grows. Around the corner, yet miles away, here's a telegram, sir. Jim died today. And that's what we get and deserve in the end. Around the corner, a vanished friend. Around the corner, a vanished Jim. Memorial Day, often called Decoration Day, we're gathered here today to honor the fallen soldier. This day was founded in 1868, as you heard the letter read a few minutes ago, and the idea was a beginning by the General Logan, so that we don't forget those who gave their lives to protect our country. Today, people all across the country come to the cemeteries to decorate the graves of their loved ones, to pause and to pray for those who have gone ahead. Not so long ago, almost 2 years ago, the terrorists attacked the United States of America on September the 11th. This was the worst killing of Americans on American soil since the Civil War. Death came to over 5,000 Americans by an act unprovoked and unannounced. And from that terrible act by the terrorists, we will hunt them out, kill them, or bring them to justice. Perhaps the second Gulf War was just occurred a month or so ago from the first day of spring, about May the 20th till April the 10th, and that perhaps has already done a good part of the job. The United States of America has witnessed any number of wars, way back starting with the Revolutionary War, and later on came the Civil War in the middle of that next century, and the Civil War caused over 2 million Americans on the side of the Union to be in uniform, 2 million of them, and deaths were recited by Mr. Fox a minute ago, how all these wars have caused deaths, and that's why we come to the cemetery to honor these fallen people, the fallen heroes from the beginning in the days just after the Civil War. Shortly thereafter came the Spanish War of 1898, and there were 300,000 of our military men in uniform. Sometime later, in the early part of the last century, the World War I occurred, and that war lasted for a year and a half as far as the Americans were concerned, and we have almost 5 million men in uniform. Some years after that, World War was the war to end all wars, but a few years later, some 20 plus, came World War II. World War II lasted for 5 years, and it cost us about 16 million men to be in uniform to hold the fortresses at bay and to win that war. Later on came the Korean War, which lasted about 3 years, and we put over almost 6 million people in uniform. Then came the Vietnam War, and the Vietnam War lasted about 9 years, and in that war we put almost 9 million people in uniform to fight that war on the Vietnam front. Then, in more recent time, came the Persian War, maybe be called by some of you Gulf War number 1, and that lasted for about 100 hours, and we had in uniform at that time about 500,000 Americans. And just lately now, just a month or so ago, came Gulf War number 2, which lasted from the 1st of spring until April the 10th. And that, I think we're registering less than 200 deaths, and that I think it is now over 135 deaths from that second Gulf War. The most tragic thing that happened to us in our time and recently was the terrorist attack on 9/11/01. That was when they captured our airplanes, used them as destroying agents or as man-made bombs to dive into the World Trade Center, not once, but twice. And then a little bit later on that morning, they commandeered another one of our airplanes and crashed into the hallowed halls of the Pentagon. Another cruel thing. Later on in that morning, they captured one. It was called Flight 93. But in that plane, there came some unsung heroes who recaptured that plane back, at least enough to divert it from its intended crash, and they forced it to crash on the green lawns of the state of Pennsylvania, saving perhaps thousands of lives of Americans had they carried out their intended duty of crashing into another one of our illustrious buildings in the United States. So even though that happened to kill those people on those 4 airplanes, that last one at least prevented that one part of attack that was in the mix. Where then is the home of the fallen soldier? I looked to the land of the living and said, this is for the rich and the mighty. And turning, I looked to the land of dead and said, this too is for the rich and the mighty. Where then, O Lord, is the land of the fallen soldier? And having thus spoken, I lifted my eyes to the clouds, whose edges were colored with gold by the rays of the setting sun. And a voice within me said, yonder. If the United States of America and her Constitution were to last for 1,000 years, people would still say of those who wore a uniform that we might remain free, that those were their finest years. If the United States of America and her Constitution were to last for 1,000 years, people would still say of those who gave their lives that we might remain free, that was their finest hour. Suppose on Sunday morning the church bells didn't ring, and as you paused upon the steps, the choir boys didn't sing. Suppose the door was padlocked, or maybe nailed up tight. Suppose a guard was standing there to stop you day and night. Suppose you saw Old Glory, a dirty, tattered rag, and flying high above your town, another country's flag. Suppose the soldiers in your town were troops some foreign powers had sent to march upon your streets instead of boys of ours. Suppose you never met a friend as you walked on down the street, and the only noise you hear are soldiers' marching feet. Suppose you saw your friends carried off to prison, or maybe even death, and all their pleading for a trial was just a waste of breath. You say this couldn't happen. Well, I pray to God it don't. But each of us must do his part to make for sure it won't. I talked about our fallen heroes and the country they saved in this country of ours, and I'm now going to tell you about this country of ours, America. I am America. My birthday certificate is the Declaration of Independence. I was born on July the 4th, 1776. I am a fabulous country of many things and many people. I am the United States of America. I am over 280 million living souls and the ghosts of millions who have courageously lived and died for me. I am William Penn and Paul Revere. I stood on the Lexington Green and fired the shot heard around the world. I am Washington, Jefferson, Hale, and Patrick Henry. Bunker Hill, Valley Forge, Yorktown are a part of my heritage. I am John Paul Jones, Daniel Boone, the Green Mountain Boys, Sergeant York, and Davy Crockett. I am Generals Lee, Grant, and MacArthur. I am Abraham Lincoln and the Gettysburg Address. I remember the Alamo, the Lusitania, Pearl Harbor, and Iwo Jima. Whenever freedom called, I answered that call. I have left my heroic dead in the Argonne Forest, Flanders Field, on the Rock of Corregidor, on the cold bleak slopes of Korea, and in the leech-infested rice paddies of Vietnam. At Desert Storm, and now at the World Tire Centers in New York City, in the hallowed halls of the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., and on the greenery of the state of Pennsylvania. Yes, I am the United States of America, and these are the things that I am. I was conceived in liberty, and God willing, in liberty I will spend the rest of my days. May I always possess the integrity, moral courage, and strength to keep myself unshackled, to remain a stronghold of freedom and a beacon of hope to all the oppressed throughout the world. This is my prayer. This is my wish. This is my goal. May God be with me, the United States of America, always, always, always. So help me God.
Charles Browning. I think he does a little better job than I do, but next up, your treat, Miss Julie Scambry.